Joining me now is Robert Spencer of jihadwatch.org. Well, we got plenty to talk about with the Crown Prince in Washington, D.C. today, getting the royal treatment at the White House. Take a look at this, please. All right, let's stop right there. The flag. They even had some horses go by, which I'll show that too. That flag, that's the Saudi flag. Well, it sure looks awfully similar to the flag of Hamas, does it not?
Well, it's the same thing in a certain sense. It says there's no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. And the flag of Hamas, the flag of the Taliban, they say the same thing. So really, it's a different design, but the sentiments are identical.
Mm-hmm. How does it make you feel seeing that all over the White House there and next to our American flag? Let's say Robert Spencer was president. Number one, would you have welcomed this guy to the White House, this Saudi prince, number one? And number two, if you felt like you needed to meet with him for some reason, would you be doing all of this and having his flag everywhere, knowing what it says and what it's really declaring?
No, certainly not. I think that there are certainly circumstances under which it might be necessary from a geopolitical standpoint to talk to the man, to meet with the man, but to do it with all this pomp and circumstance is, I think, yet another indication of the fact that this administration seems to have forgotten everything it once knew about Islamic Jihad terrorism. And I say forgotten because unlike other administrations, which never showed any indication of knowing what jihad was all about or wanting to know, the Trump administration, the president has in the past spoken about Islam, about the jihad terror threat more realistically than any of
seems low in my ear
of recent times.
Wow. Well, here's another video. Here's one. This kind of bothered me. There's the horses with that flag too. I don't know. I just don't like seeing our guys carrying that flag. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You agree?
It does. Right. Yeah, absolutely. Also, when have we seen this kind of ceremony, this kind of pageantry with other heads of state who visited? I don't remember seeing this with Netanyahu or with Zelensky or with the President Macron of France or anybody else when they've come to the White House. So why is this guy getting this lavish treatment? He's the last one who should have gotten it.
Yeah, I agree. Now, this guy is also, we'll get into what he's been accused of, but most Americans, have they forgotten about Saudi Arabia's role in 9/11? Iran? Wasn't it Saudi Arabia that didn't stamp their passports? That was Iran that didn't stamp their passports, so you would see Iran on there. But the Saudi government had to be involved with these hijackers in some way, right? Their hands weren't wasn't just like, some rogue Americans go do something. Can't always blame the government. But I'm believing that the Saudis had to have some involvement in the 9/11 attacks, right?
There's a great deal of circumstantial evidence there. For one thing, the fact that the Saudi involvement was redacted for so many years. While George W. Bush was there holding hands with King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia, while the U.S. continued to act as if Saudi Arabia is a reliable ally, in the middle of all that, the 28 pages of the 9/11 Commission report about Saudi involvement were completely covered up. Finally, under heavy pressure, the Obama administration released some of it. We saw that some of the hijackers had high-level connections to people in the Saudi government, that there were all kinds of questionable things going on. Like, I can even tell you one from my own experience. I knew a guy who was very ill. He's since passed away. And he was at the Mayo Clinic the whole summer of 2001. And he told me after 9/11 that everybody else that was there was Saudi princes at the Mayo, because they wanted the best healthcare in the world. So they're at the Mayo Clinic. And that on the morning of September 11th, 2001, he woke up, he goes downstairs, and the place is empty. The Saudis have all cleared out. And that was before the news hit of the planes hitting the towers. And so, that's just one little thing. There's hundreds of pieces of evidence like that. And indications that Prince Bandar, that others were involved at a very high level, or at least were in touch with the hijackers. And yet there's never been any accountability, never been any acknowledgement on the part of the U.S. government, primarily because we have such extensive business dealings with the Saudis, and especially during the Biden regime and the Obama administration before it, there was the attempt to end domestic energy production and make us completely dependent upon the Saudis. So the last thing they wanted to do was antagonize them, although, of course, Joe Biden ended up doing that anyway.
I think we have a clip from some of the 9/11 families, don't we, on this today, guys? Okay. I would love to see if we could find some clips of any of the 9/11 families, if anyone can find those. I don't know if any of the 9/11 families are out saying anything today. I don't know, but I would think I would be if I had a family member I lost in any of those attacks. I don't know if you're referring, Logan, to the ABC clip, but here's the ABC clip. Listen to this. Here we go.
Mr. President, why wait for Congress to release the Epstein files? Why not just do it now?
It's not the question that I mind, it's your attitude. I think you are a terrible reporter. It's the way you ask these questions. You start off with a man who's highly respected, asking him a horrible, insubordinate, and just a terrible question. And you could even ask that same exact question nicely. You're all psyched up. Somebody psychs you over at ABC. They're going to psych. You're a terrible person and a terrible reporter. As far as the Epstein files is, I have nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. I threw him out of my club many years ago because I thought he was a sick pervert. But I guess I turned out to be right. But you know who does have? Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, who ran Harvard, was with him every single night, every single weekend. They lived together. They went to his island many times. I never did. Andrew Weissman, I hear. All these guys were friends of his. You don't even talk about those people. You just keep going on the Epstein files. And what the Epstein is a Democrat hoax to try and get me not to be able to talk about the $21 trillion that I talked about today. It's a hoax. Now, I just got a little report, and I put it in my pocket, of all the money that he's given to Democrats. He gave me none, zero, no money to me. But he gave money to Democrats. And people are wise to your hoax. And ABC's your company, your crappy company, is one of the perpetrators. And I'll tell you something.
So why not just sign it now?
I think the license should be taken away from ABC because your news is so fake and it's so wrong. And we have a great commissioner, the chairman, who should look at that, because I think when you come in and when you're 97% negative to Trump, and then Trump wins the election in a landslide, that means obviously your news is not credible, and you're not credible as a reporter. So I've answered your question. You should go and look at the Democrats who received money from Epstein, who spent their time. Larry Summers was was with him all the time. That creep, the fund guy, was with him all the time. What's his name?
Reid Hoffman.
Who? Reid Hoffman. I don't know Reid Hoffman, but I know he spends a lot of money on the radical left. Reid Hoffman, in my opinion, should be under investigation. He's a sleazebag. And those are the people, but they don't get any press, they don't get any news, and you're not after the radical left because you're a radical left network. But I think the way you ask a question with the anger and the meanness is terrible. You ought to go back and learn how to be a reporter. No more questions.
Well, that was longer than I expected and related mostly to Jeffrey Epstein. But I wanted to go ahead and let it play because what do you think the prince is thinking sitting there?
What the prince is thinking probably is that it's amazing how these Americans tolerate this to start with, because the Saudi government doesn't even get that far. They don't have any kind of free press. They don't have anything remotely approaching a free press. So the idea of MBS, the crown prince there, Mohammed bin Salman, or his father, the king, engaging with any journalists in that way is inconceivable. At the same time, of course, it's a wonderful thing to see because Trump was entirely right. Although I did note that he did scold, and I think this must be the reason for showing the clip now, is that he did upbraid the reporter for asking him about Jamal Khashoggi, the Washington Post reporter who was murdered in the Saudi embassy in Turkey a few years back when he went in to get some papers related to his marriage. And so that is something that has been a stain on the Saudi regime's human rights record. I think it's entirely legitimate to ask the question. At the same time, I thought it was entirely legitimate for Trump to lay into ABC in that way. So it's kind of a shame that it was all mixed up together, because it would actually be good to see MBS explain what the deal was with Jamal Khashoggi. He just says he had nothing to do with it, as if it were some sort of a spontaneous thing happening in the Saudi embassy. Spontaneous murders don't happen in the Saudi embassy. This is a highly authoritarian state. And so it strains credulity for him to claim some distance from that. Now, Jamal Khashoggi was not a good man. He was Muslim Brotherhood. He was Muslim Brotherhood in the pages of the Washington Post. That in itself was a scandal, but that doesn't justify him being murdered. And so it should have been, the question really should have been asked and answered.
Okay, so let's see here. I do have a clip here by President Trump on this one. Here we go. Take a listen to this.
He's done a phenomenal job. You're mentioning somebody that was extremely controversial. A lot of people didn't like that gentleman that you're talking about. Whether you like him or didn't like him, things happen. But he knew nothing about it, and we can leave it at that. You don't have to embarrass our guest by asking a question like that.
It's okay, just you ask, Mr. President, you allow me to answer. I feel painful about,
Okay, so he's upset. President Trump was upset that the press asked about it. But if you let the press in, don't you think the press is going to ask that question, for Pete's sake? I mean, that's what reporters do, right?
Yeah, if you had asked me, what are they going to ask MBS and Trump?
Exactly.
It's going to be Khashoggi and Epstein. That's all they care about. They don't care about some trade deal. They don't even care that he's selling or giving, I don't know, F-35s to the Saudis. They only care about Epstein and Khashoggi and Epstein. That's the only thing they were ever going to be asking about. That was obvious. He should have known. If he didn't want them there, he shouldn't have brought them in.
I don't know if we have the longer version of that, Logan, because I think there's a minute and 23 seconds of it. I'd like to see the longer version of it real quick. All right, roll what you got.
Is it appropriate, Mr. President, for your family to be doing business in Saudi Arabia
Ooh,
while
that's
you're
a good
president?
one.
Is that a conflict of interest? And Your Royal Highness, the U.S. intelligence concluded that you orchestrated the brutal murder of a journalist. 9/11 families are furious that you are here in the Oval Office.
Who are
Why
you?
should Americans
Who are
trust
you with?
And the same to you, Mr. President.
Now, who are you with?
I'm with ABC News, sir.
You're with who?
ABC News, sir.
Fake news, ABC fake news, one of the
But the
worst,
question is
one of the
legitimate,
worst
sir.
in the business. But I'll answer your question.
Thank you.
I have nothing to do with the family business. I have left, and when I've devoted 100% of my energy. What my family does is fine. They do business all over. They've done very little with Saudi Arabia, actually. I'm sure they could do a lot. And anything they've done has been very good. That's what we've done. We've built a tremendous business for a long time. I've been very successful. I decided to leave that success behind and make America very successful. And I've made America more successful by far than it ever was, and that it ever could have been, no matter who was president. There would be nobody bringing in $21 trillion. That I can tell you right now.
Okay, so what do you make of that, Robert?
Well, here again, the question wasn't answered. And so I think that, it's a difficult situation, Brandon, because I don't have any sympathy for these journalists. I feel the same way about ABC News as the president does. At the same time, you got to wonder, well, okay, we are there in the Oval Office with this authoritarian ruler of a state with a very poor human rights record that financed Muslim Brotherhood run mosques all over the United States just a few years ago, before admittedly it stopped doing that over the last few years, and Turkey has taken up the slack. But at the same time, this is supposed to be an ally of the United States. The United States is supposed to be in favor of certain principles, and this is a regime that doesn't seem to hold to those principles and actually seems to actively trample upon them, as with the killing of this Muslim Brotherhood operative journalist. So what's the deal? Are we not entitled to an explanation? And I wish that somebody from a real news agency would ask the president and ask MBS, and maybe we could get some answers then.
Well,